Latin America is commonly used across the globe as a catch-all grouping of all nations in the Americas that speak Spanish and Portuguese as an official language. However, for a part of the world that over 626 million people call home is an incredibly vague and inaccurate term to use. Each nation in the region has its own distinct history, culture, and art, and to make things even more complex, within each nation is countless tribes and even more cultural differences that make even the national labels almost inaccurate. The music of each nation reflects the great diversity among peoples, and to discuss and spotlight each and every individual artistic movement that has grown in each culture would be far out of the reach and frankly impossible for the short primer on the music of what is called Latin America. Even for this video, which focuses solely on the music of Spanish-speaking countries and leaves out the giant that is Brazil on its own musical iceberg, I'll only be able to focus on a couple of genres and movements that I personally find to be of important and great interest. To get started, let's briefly focus on the mother country of the Spanish language, Spain. By the end of the 16th century, Spain had made its own mark on the world through its exploration and colonizing of new territories, including the Americas. The empire spread its language across the world, making it today the second most spoken language across the globe. In the world of music, Spain has also made a huge contribution and long-lasting impact, as Spain is the birthplace of the guitar, which is the primary instrument used in Spain's own pride and joy, flamenco. Flamenco is primarily music for vocals and acoustic guitar, but is also commonly accompanied by percussion. It is split up into many different subgenres called palos. The music is fiery, emotional, and is often used to accompany flamenco dances. So really, I should be showing the music and dance together as one piece, instead of different videos on top of a different flamenco song. The Aztecs first emerged sometime in the beginning of the 13th century in what is today known as Mexico. From their capital Tenochtitlan, the Aztecs spread like wildfire and became the dominant force in the region, eventually becoming a great imperial civilization, with Tenochtitlan by itself having hundreds of thousands of people within its walls. The music of the Aztecs, like that of the Mayans, was highly ritual and based around their sacrificial ceremonies. One notable instrument used during their Day of the Dead festivities was known as the death whistle, which was also used by the Aztecs just before charging into battle so as to get the opposing tribes super excited about going neck to neck with the people known for cutting the hearts out of living people on a daily basis.
Dead whistle. dead whistle. It's very unique, very unique. Imagine if I play this instrument in Chicago downtown.
South America, the tall and looming Andes Mountains is home to the Andean people, mainly within Bolivia and Peru. The most well-known and expensive of Andean civilizations was the Inca, the largest empire to exist before the arrival of Europeans. The Incan Empire stretched from northern Ecuador to central Chile, and consisted at its pinnacle of 12 million people from more than 100 unique ethnic groups. The Inca maintained a well-planned-out agricultural and roadway system and centralized language and religion, allowing for a more stable and cohesive ruling state. Eventually, following a brutal civil war between two ruling brothers, the Incan Empire would crumble to disease and the invading Spanish. Today, the music of the Andean people is known primarily through the distinctive pan flute used throughout a lot of the music and the unique vocal technique of interchanging voices and notes between two musicians known as hocket. The music of the Andes is some of the most popular of Native American music today, and in recent times has become very nationalistic with increasing pride among the Andean people for their own rich cultures and history. So I've skipped over a lot. But now, after going over the music of two of the most well-known native cultures and the music of Spain, we can now get to the meat of the video, which is those two worlds colliding and melding to bring about a whole new variety of music that has only expanded and branched out as time goes on. And as if that wasn't enough, there is a third world that collides with the native and European worlds and saturates the already colorful music sphere being created. After getting themselves settled into the New World, the Europeans started bringing over slaves from Africa to the Americas. And with those slaves came the percussive and spiritual music that would merge with the developing music of the New World and become most apparent in the region known as the Caribbean.
Esto no hay Dios que lo pare, venga rumbero a gozar. Esto me dice que te pareció. Señores, no hay quien me aguante. Y salimos de Depinar, luego a Cienfuegos y Matanza, pa' Santiago y Cama.
Although born from the atrocities of European oppression and slavery of the Native Americans and Africans, the mixing of indigenous music and African music is one of the best and addictive musical combinations to ever happen in the history of music. The music of Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, including mainland countries of Venezuela, Honduras, Colombia, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, and along with non-Spanish, Bahamas, Jamaica, and Haiti, have been one of the most popular music exports to the rest of the world and the birthplace to some of the most popular music in Latin America. Puerto Rico, with its musical styles bomba and mambo y plena, the Dominican Republic's merengue, and Cuba's son and rumba. The music playing right now is from Buena Vista Social Club, a musical group from Cuba. The album features a mixture of son cubano, bolero, Afro-Cuban jazz, guajira, descarga, and danzón, all of which are Cuban-born music styles. Other notable music styles are timba, trova, mambo, and conga. Cuba alone has spawned, been fused with, and influenced a lot of music, and has arguably been one of the most influential regions in terms of music since the 19th century, with son cubano being the direct influence for the development of salsa in Colombia, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, and New York City, which has now become one of the most popular forms of dance around the world.
Even know that it would be untrue. Even know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, hey, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire.
That was Jose Feliciano, a blind virtuoso guitar player from Puerto Rico. Feliciano gained international fame for his famous rendition of The Doors' Light My Fire, along with his Christmas music. The music of Puerto Rico, like Cuba, has expanded outside the realms of the island, and to talk of its music, it is essential to remember that Puerto Rican music is not just that of the island, but also of the diaspora living in mainland USA, which has also been a very large influence. Bomba, and most recently reggaeton, are two of the most popular music styles to come from Puerto Rico. The island draws heavily from West African and Spanish influences, with bomba being brought up from the music of plantation slaves. Bomba works as a call and response singing style with heavy percussion rhythms in the background. The dancing starts with one person, then after a while that person backs out and is replaced by another dancer. All the while the same song is still going on. Reggaeton originated in the 1980s with the mixing of Panamanian artist El General's music and the music of Puerto Rican rapper Vico C. Recently, reggaeton has become increasingly popular in the Caribbean, even surpassing salsa in popularity. Puerto Rico has also been home to a number of critically acclaimed classical composers and operatic singers.
On a public level, the bomba dance of the African plantation slaves takes its place as a tourist show in a Holiday Inn. It's about the violent death of a slave girl at the hands of her white owner.
of the simplest and liveliest Latin dances to learn because the beat is clear and the rhythm constant.
If that dance looked familiar to you, then there is a fairly good reason why. Although, like that lady said, merengue is popular in both the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, it's actually native to the Dominican Republic. Another native genre to the Dominican Republic is bachata, which is the music of those living in the shanty towns in the Dominican Republic, and it's based upon the bolero music genre. Drake's Hotline Bling is just one example of how the music of the Dominican Republic has influenced the music of the United States and elsewhere.
Dice así: Doña, rímese al fogón pa' que me haga la comida porque van a ser las 9 y usted echándose mesía con una pata en Araura y la otra en Santa Lucía. Cuando no esté en el chinchorro de la otra rancha metía con la vecina del lado y con las uñas pulidas. Será hablando de los machos que en otros tiempos tenían y yo aquí en este sol las noches las vuelvo días trabajando sin descanso y no tengo garantía. Si sigue con su mal paso a ver cómo es la jodía, le va a caer pues el espinazo a esta gasa de 2 guías para que sea feliz y se organice.
Señor, déjeme tranquila, no hable tanta tontería. Yo hoy no voy a cocinar ni obligue la madre mía. Yo no soy sirvienta suya ni obrera en su compañía. Me paro a la hora que quiera pa' donde se acojo la vía. Pa' hablar con mis compañeras no tengo la hora escogida. Si es mucha la jartadera, caliente esa pasta fría. O se va a poner su abuela pa' que le haga la comida. Si sigue la peleadera voy a ir a la policía. O en la tarde cuando venga vaya esta vaina vacía.
That was an example of contrapunto, or counterpoint, which is a popular traditional style of music in Venezuela, and works a lot like hip-hop, which in and of itself is a musical genre that has its origins in West African music and music of the Caribbean. The song playing right now is called Alma Balerna, which is a joropo song that is considered the unofficial national anthem of Venezuela. Joropo is a musical style resembling the fandango and is accompanied by dance. It was developed in Venezuela and is a mixture of native, European, and African influence. Venezuela, like Puerto Rico, has also been home to a large number of classical composers and a lot of classical music. During the late 90s, a large electronic music movement spread across Venezuela and is now the primary underground music of the country.
El campanero dice:
Known as the land of 1,000 rhythms, Colombia is home to over 1,025 folk rhythms. One of the best-known genres is cumbia, which began as a courtship dance among African populations, but eventually came over and mixed with the culture and music of South American natives and Europeans. The song playing right now has been performed by Anicito Molina, a Colombian singer and cordonist whose career spanned more than 4 decades and only passed away last year in March. Colombia, like the rest of South America and the Caribbean, has a large diversity in cultures and music and has branched out well into contemporary genres like hip-hop. Pasillo is the main musical genre of Ecuador and is rooted in the indigenous music of South America. It is considered the national music of Ecuador and today has incorporated even elements of Europe's classical waltz. Like its neighbors, Ecuador's native roots have fused with African culture and also has a distinct mestizo, indigenous and Spanish mixture that has brought about bomba music, which is a very fast style of music that uses guitars and the native bomba drum, and sometimes bombos and bongos. As I mentioned earlier, Peru and Bolivia are the main homes of the Andes and Andean people. The music of the two nations are both tied to the music of the indigenous Andean, but also mixing with Spanish and African music. Of the two, Bolivia seems to maintain a closer cultural link to its indigenous Andean heritage.
Recuerdo que mucho estrago de niño vio el alma mía, miserias y alevosías anudan mis pensamientos. Entre las aguas y el viento me pierdo en la lejanía. Mi brazo derecho fue inquieto, señores oyentes. El otro por San Vicente quedó, no sé con qué fin. Mi pecho en Curacautí lo veo en un jardincillo, mis manos en maitencillo saludan en Belequé, mi blusa en Perquilao que recoge unos pececillos.
Closely tied to the history and geography of the country, Chile's music goes far back to pre-Incan days with the Nazca and Mochica peoples. However, it wasn't until Chile's struggle for independence during the 19th century that the country's music began to truly have a national identity and a unique voice of its own. A major part of recent musical history in Chile has been La Nueva Canción Chilena, a part of the larger Nueva Canción, or New Song movement that spread across South and Central America and Spain during the mid-20th century. The movement incorporated strong political and social themes and used for expressing the struggles of the people during the turmoil and violence of the mid-20th century. After years of political strife, Chile has now become one of South America's most stable and prosperous nations, and the music scene has notably branched out into rock and roll, electronic music, and hip-hop. Paraguay is unique in that it has its own traditional polka music that is unique from European polka in that it uses tertiary and binary rhythms, allowing for a more flexible and creative form of song and dance, whereas the European polka only uses binary rhythms. The indigenous Guarani have lived in Paraguay for over a millennia, and after decades of dictatorship, the people of Paraguay toppled the oppressive regime and now are in a more democratic and free world. That was Marta Agarich, an Argentine pianist, performing Chopin's Polonaise Heroica No. 6. Marta is internationally regarded as one of the greatest pianists of the second half of the 20th century and one of the best interpreters of Chopin's music. Argentina has very close ties to the European part of its heritage, with the accordion-based chamame coming from European immigrants to Argentina, but still retains its native Andean roots with the chacara era, a slow folk dance for couples. Nueva Canción has also taken hold of Argentina with a growing rock scene in the country along with electronic music in forms of comba and reggae. The tango was partly developed in Argentina within Buenos Aires, but much of the tango's origins are claimed by Argentina's neighbor to the north. Tango was developed in impoverished areas of Montevideo, Uruguay, and then extended into other areas and countries, namely Buenos Aires and Argentina. It and candombe are the most well-known song and dance to come out of Uruguay. However, Uruguay is also home to milonga, which is a style of song based around improvisation and developed from earlier forms of contrapunto and Spanish influences. Murga, a musical theater performed by carnival celebrations, is loud, colorful, and performed by up to 17 people in bright jester-like costumes. Like everyone else, in recent years, Nueva Canción has also brought about more contemporary music like rock, candombe, cumbia, and canto popular into Uruguay. Central America is also a hard-to-define region, so what counts as Central America is really up to who you ask. The region is lush, warm, and riddled with volcanic activity. Ever since becoming independent nations over the course of the 19th and 20th century, countries of Nicaragua, El Salvador, Panama, Honduras, Costa Rica, and Guatemala have struggled with violence, political turmoil, social and economic inequality, and injustice. The music of each country is closely tied to the music of the Caribbean, with salsa, cumbia, mariachi, reggae, calypso, and Nueva Canción being very popular in the region. The music of each nation is heavily based upon each of their native origins, especially the Mayans, with many traditional instruments still in popular use today. The most well-known is Guatemala's marimba, which is the national instrument of Guatemala and has become a regular member of percussive ensembles across the globe. Panama's mehuranira is an instrument similar to the guitar but is solely unique to Panamanian music. Honduras's garifuna music is of the Linca people, and its primary instruments used are the drums and maracas. El Salvador's music is closely tied to the music of Colombia, but the nation has taken its own unique twist of the music that it shares with Colombia. Costa Rica's music is very much tied to the music of the Caribbean, particularly calypso. In recent times, Costa Rica's rock and roll and dance club scenes have started to thrive in Costa Rican culture.
¡Viva la independencia nacional! ¡Viva México! ¡Viva México! ¡Viva México!
The people of Mexico have maintained a strong sense of pride and dedication to their own heritage and culture. The music of Mexico is very diverse and wide, ranging across genres like son, ranchera, corridor, mariachi, banda, conjunto, and a whole slew of other folk styles along with the popular style of music known as guarapera. The Aztec people, despite Spanish conquest and oppression, still exist in Mexico today and are known as the Nahua people. The influence of indigenous cultures is strong in Mexico, with the Day of the Dead festivities being a very big example. Mexican rock, electronic, hip-hop, and experimental music has gained a lot of notoriety over the recent years and has made a notable dent in the culture of the United States, with its influence on its former territory of the southwest United States being strongly felt to this day. The United States has a lot of Spanish speakers, and a lot of music and art influenced by the Spanish-speaking countries of the Americas. However, over the course of history and still to this day, Spanish speakers face racism and prejudice in the United States, despite the western portion of the nation being heavily influenced and populated by Spanish speakers in Hispanic culture. People in the US say that spoke anything other than English were looked down upon and treated as second-class citizens during the mid-20th century. However, during the beginning of rock and roll in the 1950s, Hispanic rock musicians found their way into the American mainstream and popularity through the way of a 17-year-old Richie Valens.
Para bailar la bamba se necesita una poca de gracia con mi patilla arriba y arriba, por mi cerebro.
After enjoying 8 months of fame across the nation, Richie would die at the young age of 17 on the day that became known as the day that music died. He paved the way for future Hispanic musicians and Latin rock music for decades to follow after his death, inspiring the likes of Carlos Santana, Los Lobos, and pioneering the Chicano rock movement. The influence and spread of culture and music from the Latin American countries has only grown stronger as time goes on, reaching into nearly all worlds of music and continuously proving the addictive and passionate nature of the music and the people it all comes from. Although separated by each of their own history, culture, and identity, the people of all the Spanish Latin American countries all share not only a common language, but also the same fiery passion that drives them to overcome the times of violence, dictatorships, oppression, and inequality. The music, whether it be Mexican, Cuban, Chilean, Venezuelan, Puerto Rican, Uruguayan, or anywhere else, expresses a strong and passionate dedication to where you come from, who you are, and where you are going. Music, no matter the who, the what, or where, goes beyond all borders, race, and language. And the passion in music makes even the most different people feel like one.
Arriba, por ti seré, por